So picture this. It's 49 AD, and there's this Roman executive who is basically on the verge of a complete nervous breakdown.
Oh, yeah. A total collapse.
Right. I mean, he was the most powerful supply chain manager on Earth. He was literally responsible for feeding over 1 million people in Rome. And, the pressure must have been just unimaginable.
And, well, it didn't help that the emperor at the time, Caligula, was actively making things worse.
The boat bridge thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. Caligula decided, just on a whim, to build this massive, completely useless bridge made out of merchant boats. And he did this just so he could ride his horse across the Bay of Naples.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. I mean, he tied up the city's critical infrastructure. So
Yeah.
Rome was literally days away from absolute famine and probably violent revolt.
And this executive, this guy named Paulinus, he had to manage this catastrophic crisis in total secrecy to prevent mass panic. So he's suffocating under all these responsibilities, begging for a way out, just desperate for a moment of peace. And his father-in-law writes him a letter.
To try and stop him from burning out.
Exactly. And that letter remains one of the most, I think, devastating critiques of hustle culture ever written. And that's the mission for our deep dive today. We are breaking down Seneca's 2,000-year-old masterpiece on the shortness of life, or De Brevitate Vitae.
Which is just a brilliant text.
It really is. We're going to use it to uncover a practical framework for how you can, stop merely existing and start genuinely living.
It's remarkable how a text addressed to a stressed-out Roman official over 2 millennia ago maps just perfectly onto our modern anxieties.
Yeah, it feels like it could have been written yesterday.
It really does. I mean, we tend to blame our frantic lack of time on the 24/7 news cycle or our smartphones or just the endless barrage of digital notifications.
Like it's a new problem.
Right. We assume being utterly starved for time is this uniquely contemporary disease. But Seneca proves it's actually a fundamental flaw in human psychology. I mean, even Aristotle looked at the natural world and grumbled about this.
Wait, Aristotle complained about not having enough time?
Oh, absolutely. He complained that nature gave animals these incredibly long lifespans, stags and ravens living for generations, while humans who have the capacity for these profound, great achievements are given this tiny, fleeting window. Aristotle felt basically cheated by the universe.
Wow. And Seneca's response to that is really what turns the entire premise on its head.
Yeah, he doesn't agree at all.
Not even a little. He completely rejects the idea that we are victims of biological brevity. His foundational thesis is that life is not short. We just, we waste an enormous amount of it.
We make it short.
Exactly. Through our own mismanagement. He looks at Aristotle's complaint and he basically says, you don't lack time. You're just bleeding it out everywhere.
What's fascinating here is how Seneca uses an analogy from the Roman financial world to make the mechanics of this really clear.
Oh, the wealth analogy. I love this part.
Right. He argues that if you take a massive princely fortune and you hand it over to a terrible manager, it'll just vanish in an instant. It slips right through their fingers into nothing.
Just totally squandered.
Yeah. But conversely, if you take a very modest sum of money and entrust it to a careful, responsible investor, it grows. It sustains them indefinitely. And time, he argues, operates on the exact same economic principle.
Okay, let's unpack this because the wealth analogy, I mean, it almost makes it sound too passive for a modern listener.
How do you?
Well, think of your time like an uncancelable digital subscription model. Every single morning, a massive drop of credits is deposited into your account. But the catch is, whatever you don't spend by midnight simply vanishes.
Right, it doesn't roll over to the next day.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if that were real money, you would be meticulously optimizing every single credit. You wouldn't let strangers just walk up and transfer thousands of your credits to their own account.
You'd guard it with your life.
Yes. Yet with our time, we leave the login details completely unprotected. We let anyone, like coworkers, social media algorithms, petty arguments, we just let them drain the account.
Yeah.
But if we know time is finite, why are we so careless with it?
Well, that points directly to the psychological disconnect. Seneca notes that we are absolute misers with our physical property, but rampant spendthrifts with the only resource where it is actually justifiable to be stingy.
It's so backwards.
It is. He observed Romans rushing to arms, ready to throw stones and spill blood over like the slightest dispute concerning their property line.
Just off dirt.
Literally dirt. Yet they happily let strangers make massive daily withdrawals from their lifespans. And he says this is because time is incorporeal. Because you cannot physically hold it or see the balance dropping to zero in a ledger, the human brain really struggles to value it. We treat it as if it costs absolutely nothing.
I don't know. I kind of disagree that it's just about time being invisible, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't think it's just a passive failure of imagination. I think we actively give our time away because we are terrified of the silence that comes when we aren't busy.
Ah, that's a good point.
Right. Because being busy has become this huge status symbol. If you are inaccessible and exhausted, society basically tells you that you are important.
Yeah, the hustle.
Yeah. If we actually stopped and guarded our time, we would have to sit quietly with ourselves. And for a lot of people, that is a deeply, deeply uncomfortable prospect.
You're touching on the exact pathology Seneca diagnoses in what he calls the occupati.
The occupati.
Yeah, which translates roughly to the engrossed or the preoccupied. These are people living in a state of profound mindlessness. They are completely driven by external demands, operating entirely on automatic pilot.
Like they're sleepwalking.
Exactly. Their lives are consumed by ambition or the acquisition of wealth, social climbing, or just the frantic pursuit of pleasure. They run aggressively, but they have absolutely no internal compass. And you're right, the busyness is often just the defense mechanism against introspection.
And if we're fleeing that internal silence, here's where it gets really interesting. The ways we choose to distract ourselves haven't actually evolved much since 49 AD. I mean, just the technology has changed.
Oh, his examples are timeless.
They are incredibly funny, but also deeply unsettling because they're just so familiar. He details the lives of these aristocrats who spent hours at the barber, holding solemn, state-level debates over thinning locks.
Taking it so seriously.
Treating every single misplaced hair like it's a national crisis. And he writes about men utterly obsessed with arranging their Corinthian bronze collections or fussing over matching the exact color and age of their pack mules before they travel.
I think the most devastating example he offers, though, is the incredibly pampered Roman who had to be physically lifted from his bath into a sedan chair by a team of slaves.
Oh, this guy.
Yeah. And as he was being carried, he actually asked them, "Am I now seated?"
Unbelievable.
That is the absolute zenith of the occupati.
Just think about the level of psychological numbing required to ask that question. You are so disconnected from your own physical existence, so thoroughly lost in luxury and trivial distraction, that you literally require a third party to confirm your own bodily position in space.
Right. Seneca looks at that man and says he isn't at leisure. He's functionally dead.
And before we laugh too hard at Romans matching their mules, I mean, we have perfected this kind of busy idleness today. Seneca complains about Romans spending their precious hours arguing over useless trivia, like debating whether the Iliad or the Odyssey was written first.
Or which Roman general was the absolute first to put elephants in a circus.
Right, which is the precise ancient equivalent of doom scrolling.
Or engaging in furious, multi-hour arguments with strangers on the internet over, like, the lore of a television show or celebrity gossip.
Exactly. It's the accumulation of useless knowledge that doesn't make you braver or more just or more resilient. It just eats the clock. It provides the illusion of activity without the substance of living.
And this is why Seneca draws a razor-sharp line between motion and meaning. Busyness is not the same thing as living.
They're completely different.
In one of the most piercing lines of the text, he states, "There is nothing the busy man is less busied with than living." The people with the most packed schedules, the ones sprinting from obligation to obligation, are precisely the individuals least engaged with life itself.
Mistaking the speed of the pour for the fullness of the cup.
Exactly. They are pouring water into a vessel with no bottom.
But, okay, I can easily recognize the tragedy in the guy matching his mules, or the modern doom scroller. That is self-evidently wasted time. But surely the calculus changes when we are talking about people doing genuinely vital work.
You mean like the leaders and executives?
Yeah, what about the world leaders? The top-tier executives, the people managing global infrastructure like Paulinus? Aren't they utilizing their time effectively for the greater good?
Well, it's the logical assumption. But Seneca argues that high achievers are frequently the most tragic offenders of all. They become the victims of their own success, crushed under the weight of what he brilliantly terms glorious miseries.
Glorious miseries.
Yeah. Even the most powerful people in the world, the ones we envy for their influence, are often nothing more than highly decorated slaves to their positions.
And he illustrates this by targeting the Emperor Augustus, right?
He does.
This is a man who literally ruled the known world. He pacified regions, commanded legions, held unimaginable world-shaping power. Yet when Seneca looks at Augustus's life, he doesn't see freedom.
No, not at all.
He points out that Augustus spent virtually all his time praying for rest. He constantly talked about his hope of leisure, deeply anticipating the day he could finally lay aside his greatness because it was drawing blood and sweat from him daily.
We see the exact same pattern in Cicero. He was a brilliant orator and a man at the absolute epicenter of Roman political turmoil, alongside Pompey and Caesar.
Huge figure.
Massive. But despite his immense influence, Cicero wrote a letter describing himself weeping in his villa as a half-prisoner. He had reached the pinnacle of societal achievement, yet he was completely at the mercy of circumstances and the relentless demands of the public.
Which brings up the story of Sextus Tyrannius, just perfectly encapsulates the absurdity of this trap.
Oh, this story is amazing.
It really is. So Tyrannius was this fiercely dedicated official who worked into his 90s until the emperor finally forced him to retire. Now, a normal person might feel a sense of relief, right? A chance to finally rest. But not Tyrannius. He went home, ordered his household to lay him out on his bed, and commanded his entire family to mourn him as if he were physically dead.
A literal fake funeral.
Yes. And they kept up this bizarre, agonizing funeral dirge until the emperor finally caved and gave the 90-year-old his grueling job back. He literally preferred to die in harness than to face a day without his title.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the psychology of Tyrannius reveals the dark void at the center of the occupati. These leaders lacked any semblance of inner freedom.
Right.
Tyrannius didn't want his job back because he loved the work. He wanted it back because without his title, his schedule, and his external importance, he had absolutely no identity.
He didn't exist without it.
Exactly. He could not endure his own company. It is definitive proof that being important is entirely divorced from being free. You can possess all the wealth and authority in the world, but if you have no autonomy over your own mind, you are just as impoverished as the man arguing over trivia at the barbershop.
They just cannot step away. The sheer terror of sitting quietly in the present drives these hyper-competent people to seek refuge in these glorious miseries. And I think that reveals a deeper structural flaw in how we perceive our existence. We are locked in a state of constant expectancy.
Always deferring.
Yeah, always deferring our lives, waiting for some imaginary, pristine, right moment in the future to finally begin living.
And to understand why this happens, we have to look at the Stoic framework of time, which divides our existence into the past, the present, and the future.
Okay.
So the past is locked, it is certain. The present is a razor's edge, incredibly short and fleeting. And the future is entirely doubtful and governed by chance.
Right.
The engrossed, the occupati, they completely mishandle all three. They ignore the past, they squander the fleeting present, and they pour all their existential capital into the highly volatile future.
It's so true. Psychologists today refer to this as delayed discounting or future orientation, but seeing the neurological mechanism behind it makes Seneca's warning even more profound.
What do you mean? Well, when functional MRI scans monitor a person's brain as they think about their future self, the person they will be in 10 or 20 years, the brain lights up in the exact same pattern as it does when thinking about a complete stranger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. We literally perceive our future selves as different people. And that is why it is so terrifyingly easy to dump the heavy burden of our unlived lives onto them. We tell ourselves, oh, that future stranger will have the energy to write the book or repair the marriage or finally relax. We offload the responsibility of living onto a phantom.
We defer our existence. We say we will start pursuing our real passions when we hit 50, or that we will finally rest when we retire at 60.
Right.
Seneca's warning against the psychological sleight of hand is just stark. He states, "The greatest obstacle to living is expectancy, which hangs upon tomorrow and loses today." You are willingly surrendering the only domain over which you have absolute control the present moment in exchange for something that relies entirely on the whims of fortune.
There's a quote in the text that absolutely devastated me. Seneca writes, "Often a very old man has no other proof of his long life than his age."
Oof, yeah.
That perfectly captures the chasm between biological duration and genuinely lived time. You can keep your heart beating and your lungs expanding for 80 years, but if you spent all those decades in a state of suspended animation, Perpetually waiting for the future to arrive, you haven't actually lived.
You've just existed.
Exactly. You have served as a biological placeholder in your own life story.
It is the ultimate tragedy of the unlived life. You reach the end, the ultimate necessity of death presses in, and you realize you never actually inhabited your own existence. And this is the source of the urgency in Seneca's directive to Paulinus and to you, the listener. He demands the whole future lies in uncertainty, live immediately.
Don't wait for the phantom of your future self.
Precisely. Do not wait for them to take the reins.
So, we have diagnosed the disease. Busyness is a trap. Waiting for tomorrow is a neurological delusion. And seeking refuge in our titles is a form of slavery. What is the actual cure? How do we live immediately? Because the trap here is assuming Seneca just wants us to drop everything, abandon all responsibility, and sit idly on a beach staring at the horizon.
Which is the most common misunderstanding of Stoicism. The antidote to being an occupati is not laziness or apathy. Seneca provides the solution through the concept of otium.
Otium?
Yes. While otium is frequently translated into English as leisure, the modern connotation of leisure involves, like, checking out, numbing your brain with television, or just lying on a couch.
Right, tacitly consuming.
Exactly. But true otium, in the classical sense, is the rigorous, active, and deliberate cultivation of the mind and the soul. It is dedicating time to philosophy, to deep reflection, and to engaging with the fundamental questions of existence.
He writes, "We must indulge the mind and from time to time allow it the leisure which is its food and strength." He is talking about deep nourishment, not anesthetic numbing.
Exactly. This raises an important question. How does the wise person, the sapiens, actually use otium to solve the fundamental problem of time's brevity?
Right. If the present is just a fleeting razor's edge, how do you stretch it?
Seneca argues that by engaging in true leisure, by studying philosophy and history, the wise person actively annexes all past ages to their own.
So instead of waiting for hours in the crowded, humiliating lobbies of arrogant, wealthy patrons, hoping for a brief nod of acknowledgement which was the standard networking hustle of ancient Rome, the wise person chooses different company.
Much better company.
Yeah. They spend their days with Zeno, with Pythagoras, with Aristotle, and Theophrastus. You can sit down with the greatest minds in human history, and they are never not at home. They won't rush you out of their office. They will sit with you as long as you like and share the entirety of their accumulated wisdom.
And when you engage in this practice, you are no longer limited by your own brief biological lifespan. You inherit the cognitive wealth of thousands of years. You legally add their centuries to your own brief decades.
It's a time hack.
It really is. You learn not just how to navigate the daily trivialities of life, but how to live meaningfully and, crucially, how to face mortality from the masters who have already traversed that path.
So what does this all mean? Functionally, this means changing your relationship with history. It means reading, reflecting, and engaging in an active dialogue with the dead rather than a frantic race with the living. The ultimate Stoic emancipation is about combining all times into one unified experience.
Yes.
The wise person draws heavily on the certain, locked-in wisdom of the past. They seize the fleeting present with full, unblinking awareness, and they look toward the doubtful future without a shred of anxiety, because their life is already whole today. They aren't relying on tomorrow to complete them.
And that synthesis of time is the core of true inner freedom. When you achieve that, you are no longer violently tossed around by the shifting winds of fortune, the demands of the crowd, or the frantic illusion of busyness. You become the absolute master of your own temporal domain.
So let's pull all these threads together. The stark truth is that life isn't too short, we just ruthlessly squander it. We have to stop guarding our bank accounts like misers while leaving the vault door to our lifespan wide open for anyone to raid.
We really do.
We must confront the uncomfortable reality that being incredibly busy is usually just a socially acceptable way of hiding from ourselves. And most importantly, we have to recognize the neurological delusion of expectancy, stop offloading our hopes onto a future stranger, and begin living immediately.
But there is a modern corollary to Seneca's warning that we really need to consider.
Okay, what's that?
Well, today we are completely obsessed with time management. We download apps to track our habits, we listen to things at 2x speed, we obsessively optimize our morning routines to squeeze 5 extra minutes out of the hour.
Productivity culture.
Exactly. We convince ourselves that by being hyper-efficient, we are respecting our time. But what if this obsession with productivity hacks is just the ultimate modern evolution of the occupati trap? Right. If we are aggressively optimizing our time just to cram more shallow busyness into our days, just to match our Corinthian bronzes faster, so to speak, we haven't escaped the trap. We've just built a more efficient cage.
That is the paradox you have to carry with you. Are you saving time to cultivate your mind? Or are you saving time just to be busy faster? When you look at the clock at 4 in the afternoon and wonder where the day went, don't mourn the hours. Ask yourself if you were ever truly present for them in the first place, or if you were just efficiently existing. Step out of the rush. Stop waiting for the future. Live immediately. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Seneca.